Texas lawmakers failed to pass a meaningful boost in school funding this year. Now schools are balancing tight budgets while struggling to pay for those new state security requirements. The Texas Association of School Administrators works with school districts and their budgets, and Executive Director Kevin Brown joins us this morning. Kevin, thanks very much. Now, the state had what, $34 billion budget surplus going into this legislative session. How much of that, $34 billion, was dedicated to education, would you say?
Well, not much of it, unfortunately. I think you have to first start with the fact that schools have been struggling in Texas for quite some time. Texas is ranked 43rd in the United States in per student funding. We always talk about the fact that budget is a moral document for a school district. It is certainly for a state. And we certainly spend a lot of money on public ed, but when it compares to other states, and which is an important factor for us because our children are going to go to colleges in the work world and compete with children from other states. Texas ranks 43rd, the great state of Texas, which had this record surplus this biennium and a real opportunity to do something very meaningful for our public schools, to put us at the very top in the country. So far, we've squandered that opportunity. The little funds that have been provided to public schools this past legislative session had strings attached to them. So that money wasn't able to be turned around into teacher pay or benefits or lower class sizes for our students or adding programs that have an impact on the student experience. Those are the kinds of things that we really feel are important. Safety and security. We are woefully underfunded in the safety and security of our schools. There was some additional funding provided, but not nearly enough to cover what was even required of the legislature. And so those are very troubling things. We're hoping that we have a special session coming up in October that might be able to address some of those things. But we've been very discouraged. The teaching profession is very discouraged right now, and administrators are too.
Wow.
I was on a call about a week ago where a bunch of superintendents and every single one of them had adopted a budget deficit. And that's really troubling at a time when the state is flush with money.
Wow, Kevin. Well, you're not painting a very rosy picture about the future of education in Texas. Hey, I want to ask you something else. A lot of the money once dedicated to public schools now trickling out to charter schools where there is much less accountability. How much of a problem is that?
Well, I think it's a pretty serious problem in the state of Texas. And I'm not against charter schools per se. I think there's some good people that work there, and I think that there's some good things that can happen. But we've had an incredible proliferation of charter schools, which are initially get one charter approved by the State Board of Education. But after that, the Texas Education Agency can approve additional charters with just the stroke of a pen, no elected board or anything. You have school districts going out for bonds to approve campuses and to get voter approval. But with charter schools, there's no elected board. So there's not the accountability to your local taxpayers. They're getting more state funding than your local public schools are. And they don't have to keep all children. So there tends to be an incentive to keep only children who are cheap to educate. And so they tend to have fewer special ed children, fewer children that are struggling with reading and so forth. That's not all of them, but certainly that's the trend that we see with charter schools, and that tends to take some students away from the public schools. And so we're now funding two systems of education in the state of Texas. Only one of those is required in the state constitution, and we're also considering now vouchers, which would be a third system of funding, and that's very concerning.
Yep. Yeah, Kevin, thanks. Just real quick, inflation, teacher pay, about 45 seconds left. Just how quickly or how much do teachers need a pay raise right now?
They need it desperately. We are, again, in Texas, we're about $8,000 behind the rest of the country when it comes to teacher pay. We know that our teachers held us together during COVID, and we've had a lot of political divisions across our country that have percolated to the classroom unfairly with our teachers and administrators. And we really feel like we need to get the support for our teachers. They have rising health costs. All of those are very critical to be funded.
Okay. All right, Kevin Brown, Texas Association of School Administrators, thank you very much for your time. We'll be keeping a close eye on how all this develops. All right.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. And for more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button right over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app to get live news coverage, weather alerts, and more wherever you are. And don't forget to tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV for live local reporting every single day. We'll see you then.